Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to get started here in just a second. I'll start with introductions for myself. My name is Amber Walsh. I am an admissions officer here at the School of Management. I'm also an alum from the class of '09, so very much empathize with the process of going through the application process, getting excited for an MBA program. I also have worked closely with our Veterans Club in terms of their support that they give to the admissions team and the support that they give to prospective students, and just really happy to be here today for this special session, which is service to SOM and some insights for military candidates. Coming from a very specific background, and navigating their transition from service to an MBA program, maybe going back into service or transitioning into the civilian sectors. So, thinking about all of those and the challenges that go along with that, I am absolutely thrilled to have four of our panelists here who are veterans of the U.S. military, and just really happy to share their experience with you all. They're all part of our Veterans Club, which is, I'm sure they'll talk a little bit about that as well, and the support that it gives to our service members that are on this journey as well. So to kick it off, I just in terms of the format, we'll just go through a few introductions. We'll have some questions that some of you have submitted when you registered for this session. This part will be recorded, and we'll probably put it on the website afterwards, but then we will transition into some breakout rooms where you can ask some questions directly to our panelists, and that part will not be recorded. And I will also stay in the main room in case there's some very specific admissions questions that you have. So without further ado, I want you to hear as much as possible from our panelists. So I'm going to ask Kevin to kick us off with his introduction.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kevin Miguel. Pre-SOM, I was in the Army. I spent 4 years in the 75th Ranger Regiment and then transitioned to the National Guard for 3 more years, primarily assigned to 217th Ordnance Company in California. If you're hearing background noise, that's my dog playing. So yeah, pre-SOM, I was in the Army. I spent my summer at McKinsey & Company out of Austin, Texas, working on their McKinsey transformation program. And I'll be headed back to McKinsey afterwards. I'll kick it over to Andrew.
Hey guys. Yeah, I was in the Navy. I was a surface warfare officer in the Navy for 8 years. I was stationed on USS Higgins and USS America, and then I did my shore duty at 6th Fleet in Naples, Italy before coming here. Part of the reason I came was to transition into tech. I did an internship as a technical product manager at Amazon over the summer, and I'm doing a full-time search basically this time. I'm not returning.
Hey everyone, good to have everyone on. My name is Craig Cowell. I was a 11-year Army aviation vet. So I flew Apaches active duty for the first 8 years, and then I took a non-flying job as a defense liaison in Japan to close out my service. Over the summer, I worked at a real estate private equity startup called Invera Real Estate Partners. They were based out of Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I want to be long term. And I guess the other thing of note is, I'm dual military, and my wife and I started our family during my first year of MBA. So if you have any questions about what it's like to, either have a long distance partner or about parenthood, anything like that, feel free to ask. Cullen.
Hey everybody, my name is Cullen McGahan. I'm a first year MBA, so I remember sitting in your shoes exactly a year ago to this day. That also means that I don't have an internship so far, so I'm going through recruiting right now. I'm originally from Davidson, North Carolina. I did my undergrad at West Point and afterwards commissioned in the Army as an infantry officer. Spent about a little over 5 years in the Army. And yeah, now I'm here at SOM, so it's good to meet you all.
Thank you all for those intros, and love that we have a diversity of branches here represented and experiences so far. and second years, and Cullen is a first year student, so coming in with a lot of different insights on that process. So talking about preparing for an MBA journey, what do you recommend for transitioning service members? What can they do to prepare for their MBA studies and recruiting in the months leading up to their first semester of their MBA? And maybe I'll kick it to Cullen first, because he's the freshest from that experience.
There's a few things I think on a tactical level, while you're still in the military, enjoy it. And it's also a very important time because maybe different from people coming from other backgrounds, there's a lot more transitionary things going on. So I would just say plan in advance, schedule your timeline out, and just make sure that you're on top of like your PCS and your disability and getting everything like that comes with transitioning that's a bit unique to military applicants in order because it is a process and there's a lot of things going on kind of in that short amount of time frame. And this is something that all the other veterans have gone through here as well.
Yeah, if I'll jump in and add something too. For me, I think there's sort of two parts. There's the part that Colin described, which is very true about like how do you end the service part in a way that's elegant and like ties over and frees you to be a full-time student. There's like that part. There's also the part of like after you get here, there's a lot of translating and understanding that you have to do that your other peers have by virtue of their business background. Like there's all these terms and things that you'll learn about some of them, but like some of them you have to just learn about yourself. Like what does the customer relations management function do at companies? Like that's something that I would have no idea coming from the military, and yet it's a buzzword or something you'll see in a job posting. So there's just a lot of like engrossing yourself in trying to learn terms and get up to speed as fast as you can. And the more you can do that earlier, it'll also better inform your job search. Because one of the things that people don't like, they understand intellectually, they don't perhaps don't understand when they first show up, is that recruiting starts almost immediately. And so if you are going in the wrong direction because you haven't done a lot of research on what's right for you, you will start out in that direction and there won't be much time to recover before you start putting forth effort into consulting before realizing that you didn't want to do it, or banking, or whatever it might be. So the more that you can do to understand your why and do some preliminary research about what's the right role for you over the summer, that'll definitely help you in not wasting additional effort once you get here.
I'll add one thing to that. So even before you arrive at SOM, there are like pre-MBA programs. And the CDO, they publish an article every year with like timelines and things that you can apply for. So I pulled the article from 2020 or from this year. I'll put it in the chat. But a lot of these companies, a lot of the larger companies, they have pre-MBA programs that you can apply for, and you can see if they're a good fit for you. And so I think one of the biggest things is, yeah, you're transitioning, from military to school, and you have to basically get your affairs in order. But also, it's good to know what opportunities there are, like once you're set and you're kind of like in the summer, just kind of like waiting for fall to start. And if there is an opportunity with a company that aligns with you and your timeline, I would highly recommend, checking out this article and seeing if something can work for you.
I think that's all super helpful and practical. And on the admissions end of things, my advice to all candidates is do as much thinking and reaching out as you can right now, because once you are in the program, I think as Andrew talked about too, like it's intense. There's a lot going on. There's 80 clubs to join. There's hundreds of recruiters coming to campus, and there's so many opportunities, and it can be a bit overwhelming if you haven't taken the time to think about what is really of interest to you, and maybe having some conversations. And I think this is probably a good part to ask a question about, like leveraging support networks. So maybe I'll kick this to Kevin. How soon should military applicants reach out to the Veterans Club or other support networks for assistance with the application process? And just any other resources that you think are useful for our audience today.
Yeah, definitely. So we're always happy to help. If you want to reach out to us, our email address is our first name dot last name at yale.edu. So what I would say is reach out as soon as you think it makes sense. There isn't like a box that we check off that says, okay, X candidate contacted us X amount of times. We don't do that, but we do want to be helpful in your process of doing your application and figuring out what school is best for you, especially like once you have your offers and you're deciding and all that. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about here was what Craig alluded to was the pre-MBA programs. So I did apply through the pre-MBA programs for consulting, and the Veterans Club specifically helped me out with my practice mock exams and stuff like that, and helped me out through the entire application process because the consulting club, they're great, but they have a very structured program that begins in August and ends in December. So that really didn't tailor to that timeline that I had. So I did have a few veterans reach out and say, hey, let's help you out. Like, let's get you sorted and squared away, and ended up getting the offer before I even stepped foot at Yale SOM. So I would say reach out when you think it makes sense. Don't think that we're like checking a box or like we have to do this. But like we're very, very happy to help, and feel free to reach out to us with any important questions.
Yeah, and I just, the Veterans Club is a huge support for certain, and I would say that this is a kind of model at SOM as well, that we have professional clubs or other identity clubs that are really, they're started by the students, they're run by students, and they're really there with that function of mentorship and support. Of course, for social activities as well. I think a really important dimension, as well as that the Veterans Club works with us on the admissions team, not in terms of giving us, feedback like on your interactions or anything like that, but more around interpreting resumes and things like that, so that we are very clear on our end the type of work that you've done, the type of leadership roles that you've taken on during your military service, so that we are giving you all of the advantages of that through the admissions process. So the Veterans Club is a huge support for military candidates in general. So maybe, I don't know if one of you would like to talk a little bit more about the Veterans Club and the activities there, and maybe how the Veterans Club or similar communities have helped you transition into business school life.
Yeah, sure. I'll kick things off here. I was actually going to look for our Veterans Club website, which you have a separate website from Yale SOM. But essentially, we the way that the curriculum is set up, initially when you set foot at SOM, they'll break you into your cohorts. Your cohorts are going to be the section of about 70 or 80 students that you're taking every single class with for that first year. So your core curriculum. So you're taking accounting, finance, economics, marketing with those same people. And because of that, I feel like it facilitates those friendships, and you end up doing a lot of things as a cohort or as a learning team or as a small learning team. Where the Veterans Club comes in is that we're able to help out with your process throughout that, kind of as an additional thing. We also do like happy hours, networking events. I think we did a few dinners this year with veterans that just passed, Veterans Day that just passed. We did a Veterans Day formal at the Yale Law School. Everybody showed up in suits and socks, and it was a great time. I will drop a link in a little bit with a few pictures of a couple different events that we did, so that people could get a kind of a feeling of the different type of events that we host.
Right. So, um, thinking about your identity as military or veteran student, how has that influenced your experience at business school? And I know some candidates kind of worry, like, how do you fit in with the other classmates? And I've kind of learned that this is like a general concern that almost every applicant has, but maybe you can speak a little bit to the community aspects at the school and just basically how that transition has been for you, socially and academically. Maybe I'll kick it to Craig to kick us off.
There's going to be a little bit of a culture shock. Like, I think one of the things that I vividly remember, if you're starting a meeting in the business world, at noon, like, it's totally okay to show up at noon or like a couple minutes late, right? We've been kind of trained to always show up early. There's going to be very like small stakes stuff like that you'll kind of just like learn as you go. But as far as the identity and the experience piece goes, I think it's really important to kind of understand that the military gives you a lot of exposure to the correct soft skills that are required to be successful in business. And so, you have leadership experience, you have experience working in like a large organization, and you gain a lot of soft skills from that. But like, closing the gap on the hard skills, I think is what I found I had to kind of focus on the most. Um, and so I guess the bottom line is, your soft skills and your leadership and your military experience will get your foot in the door, for sure. It's definitely a great starter, but you have to meet, others kind of halfway, and show, tenacity and goodwill and a willingness to learn and a willingness to engage and ask questions. I think one of the biggest lessons over the first year that I learned was to simply just ask. Um, because, even though it might feel, it feels like the other side of the table is not getting a lot from you. I would definitely say there are more people, especially in the SOM community, that are willing to help you and, willing to have the conversation to see if they can either answer your question or like find someone who can like give you an answer. So it might feel a little bit, or to Kevin's point about, ask for conversations when the time feels right for you. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you do have a question or you try to outreach. You'll save a lot of time and a lot of I guess you'll save a lot of time and effort on research, by talking with current students and listening to kind of their anecdotal stories as you kind of figure out what you want to do and where you want to go.
I can touch on this too. I think I maybe have a little bit more cheerful outlook on this, but I think that veterans actually assimilate pretty well into the curriculum for a couple of reasons. The academically, I don't, at least here at SOM, I haven't found the courses to be too challenging or too stressful. So if that's something you're worried about, it's been a few years since school. The resources are here to set up, and there's really no reason to not be successful academically, at least. In terms of like simulating and kind of the skills that we bring to the table, I think the big differentiator piece is real life leadership. I was stationed in Hawaii, obviously was a platoon leader, about 40 soldiers, which is probably very normal. Probably a lot of you guys sitting here have done the same thing. That's unheard of in a lot of civilian sectors coming to business school. A lot of my civilian peers have amazing backgrounds. They've done great things. Maybe they're coming from consulting or banking, but being in charge of and leading 40 human beings is unheard of in almost every other industry. And I think that that's a huge sort of differentiator. And people also find that cool. People are interested in that. They want to ask you about it. They want to talk about it. They're interested in your military experience and what it does because it's kind of foreign and it's exotic and they want to learn about it. So I've found the transition, yeah, there's a learning curve, takes maybe a little bit to adjust, but it's been a fun ride, honestly. And I think that the veterans assimilate pretty well into any business school community and especially here at SOM. That's my take on it.
I love that, Cullen. I agree with that perspective as well. As someone who had, several military classmates, and also I read, hundreds and hundreds of applications, and we really appreciate the experience that you all bring to the classroom, the leadership exposure that you've had, models of amazing and maybe less amazing leadership styles as well, I think provide a lot of important context to the classroom setting. So I know that SOM deeply appreciates our veterans and what you all bring to the table. I think we show that too, as in terms of the financial support that SOM provides in terms of doing the yellow ribbon match and things like that. So really very much appreciate our veterans in the classroom. So maybe transitioning to, how you've used your military background to navigate career development and recruitment during your MBA. I mean, the three of you that are in second year have gone through the internship period. Like, how have you, and maybe what support have you gotten to kind of translate your military skills into civilian work, and what maybe advice you have for candidates as they're making those transitions as well?
I don't mind jumping in on this. I'm actually one of the student career advisors too, with the CDO, the Career Development Office. So I think the biggest advantage of being a veteran is that people respond back to cold messages at a lot higher of a rate. And so if I was just going to send out cold messages on, I don't know anyone from this company, but, I'm interested, they're geographically, or they do a business that's interesting, let me chat with someone. The number one thing I'll look at is like, do they have any SOM alums who are there? Because I know they will respond back, at a high rate, let's say 70% of them. And then the military people will respond back at like a 50% rate. And then everyone else will respond back at like a 10% rate. And so it's a significant difference that's very helpful to leverage. And those people are great sounding boards because they were just where we were. And, you can have a conversation with them about like, why did they do what they did? And it can be really insightful about, oh, this is how I should think about what I enjoy about work and what's the right place for me. Or, this company maybe isn't a right fit because as I'm talking to them, I'm realizing that being business to business versus business to customer makes a big difference in the types of work that you're doing. And for this person, they chose business to business. But for me, I'm like, actually, I think I would choose the opposite. And that's the kind of conversation that you can have with a veteran who, it wasn't a Navy veteran, it wasn't, it was an SOM veteran, but it was very impactful because we had shared experience. And to get to the second part of it about translating skills, it is a journey. As someone who's on a search now where I chose not to go back to my company, you have to understand that and you have to be able to communicate it. And, the resume work doesn't stop because I haven't taken a return offer. And so it's a constant iterative process to hone and refine. And, there are resources around you, but a significant fraction of people, at least in my case, have return offers. And so not everyone is recruiting in the second year. And so not everyone is on that same shared path. And so the more that you can do to think about things beforehand and understand, why you're interested in a particular field will help you to understand the skills that you have that may be informed why you want to be there or like how you demonstrated it in the past. And the better you can connect to that root, the more effective you're going to be at translating it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that like the first week I went to the resume place and I fixed the resume and I never had to do any work on it. For like it continues, and it's a constant evolving sales pitch in a way about like you and your story and trying to communicate your story in a way that is intuitive and understandable on a human level from someone who has absolutely no shared background with you. And the more that you can do that, and that's a skill, the more that you can refine that skill, the better you're going to be at translating, what a platoon manager does or a division officer does to, how do I be a program manager at Google?
I think that's great advice. And you're reminding me to what Craig was saying earlier about being willing to be vulnerable and ask questions and use your network. And I think that that's often a place where we maybe pre-MBA are not as comfortable doing that. But I think that MBA, not only do we have a kind of safe space with our existing networks But the SOM alumni, they were all in the same situation, like you said, Andrew, like having this shared experience. And so they're very happy to be very direct with you about, what works, what doesn't, what would be better, what you should think about, what you should stop doing. I think that is a tremendous resource, and the confidence and also comfort with that vulnerability is definitely something that I learned as a student at SOM myself. So I want to transition so you have some time to talk with our virtual participants today, but maybe we can just do a quick round robin of one piece of advice you wish you had known before starting your MBA journey. So maybe Kevin, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, one piece of advice, I would say, like, figure it out what you want to do, and that can change, and that's okay. But have a target, go towards a target, and if you need to adjust, you need to pivot, go for it, totally fine.
I don't mind going next. I guess my one piece of advice, it's a kind of a tangent to Kevin's. In a way, it's to be very self aware and self-oriented, because it's very easy to lose your way if you don't have a plan. And so have a plan, be willing to change the plan, but don't forget why you want what you want, and connect to that, and don't just get on the banking train because other people are getting on the banking train.
When you're coming up with your plan, like, I think it's really important to have an understanding when the metaphorical train leaves the station, so to speak. So like Andrew pointed out, like, when when you arrive at SOM and you start taking classes, like recruiting begins really at that moment or even a little bit earlier. Like you haven't taken a class yet, but like you're networking, towards an internship for the following summer. And different industries will have different starting points, throughout the year. So like consulting and investment banking, they're going to be very structured. Like they're going to have deadlines and they're going to have requirements versus other industries, whether it be marketing or tech or entrepreneurship, nonprofit, maybe they're a little bit less structured than those industries. So having a sense for when you need to apply a certain number of energy to explore a certain path versus committing to one and having that sort of ironed out and kind of well understood, I think would serve you guys well.
So the other guys already hit on it, and I wholly agree to do some reflection before you get here on what you want to recruit for, because it does start right away. Aside from that, I would just say enjoy your last few months or last period of time in the military. It's going to go fast. Have your transitioning items in order so that it's a smooth ride, but enjoy it. Like this is going to be the last time that you're in that sort of environment, probably forever after that. So have fun with it, and it's going to be work to come when you come to school.
Absolutely. I think that's all great advice. Preparing for kind of having a bit of a North Star in terms of what you're thinking you want to explore. Having those conversations up front will really help you. But also knowing that you're going to come into a space that is so full of opportunity and so many options. So staying flexible, I think, is also, a great mindset to have without getting kind of washed away by each set of recruiters that comes in. So thinking about that, having conversations, hopefully for everyone watching, feel free to reach out to the Vets Club. Also, we have student ambassadors, so you can search by industry. So if you're looking to understand a little bit more about the recruiting cycle and resources by industry that you're interested in, you can search by that. You just go under Yale SOM student ambassadors, and you'll find a lot of different ways to find someone that has volunteered to chat with prospective students, and that's a really nice resource. You can also always reach out to me. My email address is amber.walsh@yale.edu with any questions that you have. So I want to thank all of our panelists for answering these questions for our recording. We're going to end the recording at this